Hey everybody, my name's Joe Testa. I am the Vice President of Orchestrations for the Zildjian Company. Don't let that confuse you because Vic Firth is under the umbrella of Zildjian, and so that is the brand we're here for today. Um, we have Scott Quady in Mission Control. He'll be controlling all the stuff back and forth with the cameras. If you have questions, please submit them because we'd love to get to some of those if we have time. Um, let's see here. Let me pay some bills here. So, as a special honor uh, of this interview towards Thomas, what we are doing is offering a 15% discount off all signature sticks at vicfirth.com for the next 24 hours. So, until this time tomorrow, you can get 15% off any Vic Firth signature sticks, but I'm sure Thomas would enjoy you getting his. All you need to do is use the code VF Signature, and you put that in there, and you 15%. So, one last thing I wanted to mention before we bring Thomas on. There's, as everybody, I think a lot of people may or may not know actually, is that there are a lot of wildfires right now where Thomas is at, and so sometimes the internet gets a little funky, and so we were road testing it, and for the most part, it's working. But there are times where there'll be some glitches and stuff, and apologize for that, but there's not much we can do because it's kind of out of our hands. So, all right, with that being said, I just wanted to say I've known Thomas a long time. He's an amazing drummer, an amazing human being, good friend. He just recently, I think, is on the cover of the August Modern Drummer, and he just sat in at the late night with Seth Meyers, and he's just doing a tons of stuff. And I don't want to talk about it; I'd rather talk about it with him, so you guys get to know. So let's get him up here and let's do this. Thomas,
Giovanni, come stai?
bene. How are you, my friend?
Very well. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, thanks for doing this.
Of course. Yeah, I just
First
want
and foremost, why don't you tell everybody how are you doing? How are you handling all this stuff? You know, you guys not only do you have the whole COVID nightmare, but we have the fires and everything else going on out there. Are you doing okay?
we're doing fine. We're staying cool, both in terms of temperature and terms of stress levels. Um, yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on. A lot of reading material every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're hanging in there. It's all good.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to I mean there's a bunch of things I want to talk about, and obviously there'll be some career talk and there'll be some playing talk and everything. But I think one of the more exciting things as of late for you has been your new record called Prog Pop, right?
Carpal.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about that and dive into that because I was checking some of that out and I'm just well anyway, I don't want to say too much. I'd rather you talk about it.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about the concept behind the record, how it came about, what you were thinking when you wrote it.
Okay. Well, I'm a boy of the 70s and 80s in terms of music and inspiration. I was always super inspired by 70s kind of heavy rock and kind of thuddy drums and big drum sounds. And then the whole sort of combination of sequencing and live playing in the 80s. And no drum processing, no live drum processing. Nothing was peak detected or quantized or sound replaced. It was all real live drums, and in combination with sequenced instruments and a lot of other combinations of computer generated kind of rhythms and tracks and patterns, and also a lot of live playing. And I wanted to make a record like that, a kind of 80s retro sounding record. And I started working in the 80s professionally, and one of the main sort of our main focus was always to play super tight with whatever was programmed, or to make drums sound like programming, because that's what kind of was hip at the time. And I want to make a record like that where the drum parts are compositions within the composition of the song, and where the drum parts are truly arranged parts with layers of rhythms, a bit like if you were programming a drum computer with two fingers. And at one point you go and play some bongos with two fingers, and then a tambourine and a little side snare, whatever, and then you create these layers of rhythms. And then when you handed it over to a drummer and you said play this live, the drummer would go, but I don't have six arms and four legs. but I wanted to make grooves like that happen. And they're quite kind of progressive 21st century type grooves that involve a lot of independence and interdependence, but they sound really simple. And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted to play simple music, catchy tunes, but with ultra complex drum parts that sound like drum machines and percussion layered on top of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I was just while I was watching on your YouTube channel, I was checking out all the tunes, and I'm like, well, I've never understood how you do what you do. I just don't get it. But I want to. I mean, the independence thing is crazy, and I just love the way you put all those. The way you explain it's exactly right. There's all these layers of different. If you couldn't see it, you'd think it was a couple people playing it.
Hi, Jessica. Love you too. Sorry,
And,
I was
you know,
listening. I saw the stream and went like straight to the heart.
Good. That's good. So that in mind, I'd like to break down a few of the tunes if you're cool with it. Like the song "Time."
Yes.
There's this crazy feet part that you do. I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot of feet parts you're doing. I mean, you're actually not just double bass drum stuff, but you're playing you got like, I don't know, what do you got? 8 pedals underneath you?
I got 8 pedals. No,
yeah.
Right now I have 6 pedals. And
6. I'm sorry. 6.
Exactly what I've got here. So on the left, I have a foot snare. Okay, these are all DW titanium chain drive pedals. I've got a left foot snare. Then I have a left foot crasher. I have my left hi-hat with a jingle ring on top, left kick, and right hi-hat. So that's...
So let me ask you a question. When you're performing a piece, is there room for improv? Like, do you know what pedals or are you like, do you have to learn the patterns and just memorize them and commit to that memory so that you get the right physical patterns down too?
Yes, and that is the challenge of playing these kind of arranged drum parts. There are switches from one section to the next section of the song where I'm switching everything, the patterns, the rhythms, the orchestration, the sequences of patterns, both with hands and feet, all on a one. And that's a big challenge and something I haven't heard anybody else before like that. For you, when I come out of a chorus pattern of Time, for example, on the one, everything switches. Completely different orchestration, completely different sequences of multi-pedal orchestrations, right-hand patterns, etc. And that's really the challenge, to switch all 4 limbs from one very strict, defined, composed pattern to a completely different one. And in terms of drumming, that is a really interesting sort of aspect for me in sort of high-end contemporary drumming, and something I haven't, like I said, heard anybody else do. And I find really cool. It's a bit like you're programming a sequence, and then the next one it's a completely different sequence, but with all 4 limbs. So there's no kind of easing in or anything like that. It's like right on the one. And that's people always look at the patterns and go, oh, that's a difficult pattern to play. Yes, they're all difficult, but switching between them is even more difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, let's show people a little bit of that. Let's take the song "Time," because that has a really cool thing going on.
Mike here, our engineer, and he's also director of content creation at 9 Beats. Mike's over there. He's going to run the computer for me. So let me talk about time. Time is kind of, it's 120 BPM. Of course, that's a reference to time because 60 beats per minute is a multiple of that. And I wrote the drum part to be a bit like cogs in a clock. It's, the song Time is all about time, and how we break down things, complex issues and concepts into small bites so we can mentally digest them, because that's a very complex and very sort of abstract concept, the concept of time. Anyways, but I have all these little cogs that kind of work together and create this groove, if you like. And I'll just play you some of the actual song. And then I'll stop somewhere in the middle of it and break some parts down, okay?
Great.
1, 2, 3, 4. Groove. So,
Oh, did we just? There he is.
okay,
Ah.
I'm back. So let me break some of this down. In the intro section, I'm playing a linear single pattern, alternating linear singles between right hand and left foot. So it's basically all E's and R's with the left foot and eighth notes with the right hand. So 1 E and 2 and 3 E and like that. 3, 4. With a quarter note accent on the right hand, and also with some embellishments on the right hand, like. So it's not just eighth notes. Okay, so and that's in itself an interesting pattern, especially with when the right hand is playing something a little more fancy. And I practiced a lot of left foot E's and R's in regular grooves to get used to that kind of feel, you know. And learn to kind of solo freely over that. So I get comfortable with the E's and R's. And then I'm orchestrating the E's and R's on 3 pedals, like this. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then I'm 3 on the kick drum, but on the 3 I'm also playing the right pedal. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. The left hand is playing a 2-bar phrase over 4 rada toms, and it's always the E and A of every quarter note. So 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3, 4, and then 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3, 4. 2-bar phrase. The right hand is playing along with the guitar riff, which goes boom, 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 boom. And I'm orchestrating that, going 1, with the right hand. And then I'm playing little embellishments on the hi-hat. Every once in a while crashes with the right hand and so on. So all together it kind of sounds like this. I'll play it slow, okay? 2, 3, 4. Etc. So that's the intro groove that reappears later in the song. But that kind of, especially with those E's and R's on the foot snare, I think creates a really interesting sort of groove design that has a melodic element and also some straight hard-hitting groove. So that's the intro section. In the verse section, I'm switching the ostinatos with the feet and all the orchestration on top right on the 1. And instead of now of playing the verse pattern, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm playing this pattern, 3. I wanted to have sort of a similar left-hand pattern, but in the verse it's only a 1-bar phrase, not 2-bar. It kind of has the E and A phrase going, but only between 2 toms, not 4. So it's a shorter phrase, and again, it's a fraction of the longer phrase, because the time, the whole thing about cogs, it's about multiples, about units, about counting, and so on. So here I'm just using a 1-bar phrase, using the same or similar elements. The left foot pattern is also still on E's and R's, but now it's playing the crasher, the hi-hat, and then the double kick. At the left kick drum, which creates this double kick pattern on the 3. I'll show you the feet by themselves. It looks like this: 2, 3, 4. Okay, so and this I find interesting because you can hear the tom, the floor tom on the 4, along with the E's and R's on the crasher. You can hear the bell on the 2 with the hi-hat on the offbeat. So there's all these interesting sound combinations happening in a fast sequence that I find very interesting. It's a bit like programming. And then moving the left foot over onto the double kick, the left kick pedal creates these 460 notes on the 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the second bar. So again, a nice, interesting layer of rhythms, orchestration with the hands, multi-pedal orchestration, and I'm switching very quickly between one pattern and the other. I'll just play you the switch so you know what I mean. That's the tricky part. It's not patterns by themselves, but it's actually switching. I'll play the switch from the intro pattern to the verse pattern, okay? So that was sort of the combination of the two.
Wow.
Joe, confused.
No. Well, slightly. So I have a question for you. When you are working out those parts, are you did you write it out and kind of make it look, work like you're talking about, like the cogs in the wheel, or did you just make them up as you went along? Because it sounds like you were very orchestrated about what you wrote.
Yes, I was. I mean, I had a concept in mind, and I sat down and jammed on the kit along with the the music I had written at the time, which didn't have vocals on it yet, but with the kind of the riff and everything, I had all that. So I was just sitting down and jamming along to it, and within 20 seconds, this kind of happened. I wanted to have kind of cycles uh, on top of each other that consists of multiples and fractions. And this is all in a straight 4/4 time signature. And I wanted to have very sort of clearly, distinctly identifiable little cycles. Go 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 go, like the rototom. It kind of stakes out. Then I wanted to have things like very sort of featured kick drum parts. A subtle kick drum on 1 and 3 for a while, but then in the second bar on the 3, like four kick drum, very 80s. You have these 80s beats that go, like. Like Blue Monday. That kind of stuff. So I wanted to work that in. And so I had real sort of cliches in mind, and then started jamming on the song, and it just happened quickly, naturally.
So did you, because you wrote all the songs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you write the music part first or the drum part first, or was it a combination depending on the song?
It was different from song to song. Usually I write the music first and have a drum part in mind, and then I kind of tweak the drum part. Once I have the riffs written and the structure of the song down, then I sit down, I play it a bunch of times, and I work out the drum parts and kind of work into the drum parts what I'm hearing in my weird mind.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's so awesome. So
approach. It's not an improvisational approach, and that was the idea. A very conceptual kind of approach to drum part composition.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, let's do another tune like that. Let's do This Is What We Want.
More part of this song, because that has
Okay, go ahead.
Pattern in the bridge section, and I want to just break that one down because a lot of people have been asking about it. In the bridge section, I'm playing Hertha fives, and I'm sure all you rudimental geeks out there will know what that is. It's a group of 5 and the head in the beginning. So it goes 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3. It's like a hertha only with 2 more notes. Hertha, of course, is and I just add 2 more notes instead of groups of 3. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, which is a hertha. I play 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, and I play 5 of those with the feet. Okay, so and in 4 4 3 4. The regular hertha 5 3 4. Okay, and then play 5 groups of 5 and then on the 4 and a 5-stroke roll to the next one. So the whole pattern sounds like this on the snare drum: 2 3 4. 2 3 4. That played with the feet: 1 2 3 4. Okay, and then this cycles with the second. This is a 2-bar phrase, the 5s, and then there's a 2-bar phrase in the chorus that sounds like this: 2 3 4. Very simple, just ease and Oz again with the left foot: 3 4. And I played those 2-bar phrases sequence, and together, I think I'm stuck. Here I am. And together it sounds like this: 1 2 And as you can see, I'm orchestrating the feet differently in the second 2 bars. I'm stepping on 4 pedals. So I'm getting that kind of dirty, messy kick drum with the cymbal on top of it. And that in combination I find interesting as contrast. And that, again, is a fun pattern to play because it's really polymetric and polyrhythmic, because the feet are in 5, 16, and then the right hand plays in 4. And later in the song, I add more syncopations to the right-hand pattern too, and play patterns based on a sort of 16th note swing spang-a-lang pattern like this: 1 2 3 4, that kind of stuff. And with the feet, it sounds like this: 2. Etc. So that's that section. Sorry, Joe. I just want to explain that because I had a lot of questions.
No, I'm glad you did, because I missed that, and that's pretty cool. That's awesome. Another tune I wanted to talk about was "This Is What We Want," because again, the stuff you're doing, especially with the floor tom, the left floor tom pattern you were kind of throwing in there, is really cool. Would you break that down a bit?
What we want, of course. This Is What We Want has a really, again, very conceptual drum part. It was inspired by gamelan melodies from Bali, Indonesia, and I'm playing this melodic pattern over the rada toms: 3 4. And the feet are playing basically a bayon pattern, which is again like a Latin pattern, African pattern, bayon, which is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, always typical like dance hall, pattern: 3 4. And so what I did in that song, I played that bayon pattern with the right foot, but orchestrated over 2 pedals with the right foot like this. Okay, and then again, that has a cool cycle by itself. The left foot in this song fills all the gaps between the right foot over two different sounds. So the foot pattern with the right foot biome pattern and the left foot filling in sounds like it looks and sounds like this. 3, 4. And it's a dynamic pattern. I'm making sure that I'm accenting certain strokes with my left foot and not others. You know, like I'm accenting that last ah, one E and ah. Okay, and that's you know, tricky to play and to play precisely and in time and dynamic. On top of that, I'm playing that Gamelan-inspired pattern, and the right hand is playing a backbeat on the 4, almost like a halftime feel, and some cowbell and a floor tom. I'll play you the verse groove, or actually the chorus groove of this song. It goes like this. So that's that one pattern. And the one you were talking about is actually the verse pattern where I'm playing the gong drum with the left foot, and I'm playing a different foot ostinato, playing more on the foot snare drum and with the left foot, and still switching between hi-hat and kick drum and just kick drum with the right foot. The verse pattern sounds like this. I'll break it down in a minute. So again, layers of rhythm that kind of intertwine and sort of are interdependent. If you mess one thing up, like a hand part, then the feet suddenly sound a little out of whack, and you have to be very precise and very disciplined about the execution of all these patterns. And then there's other patterns in the song, and I'll play a little of the song in a minute. The bridge section is the biome pattern, but played on double bass, like this, with dynamic kick drum patterns there. 3, 4. And the left hand is basically playing like a Latin-inspired. And what else is happening in the song? There's a solo. There's a drum solo. I'll play a little bit of the song, okay? Mike's going to start it. Hang on. Here we go. You can go anywhere in the, you know, past the intro if you want, Mike. Okay. So Here you heard the two patterns I explained earlier: the gamelan-inspired one and the verse pattern with the gong drum and everything.
Yeah, that, that's amazing. um, yeah, a lot of people are freaking out about it. They're like, "This is amazing. How's he doing all that stuff?" And I don't know how to answer that, but
These two
um,
these two sticks, that's my secret, guys. My big
yes,
secret
yes,
sticks. Just get them. They come
yeah, and you can
with a pre
and look at
twirl. That's
you
really
can look right
that's
there.
included in the price. And if you pay extra, you get this one as well. It comes with the
Yeah.
stick. Super easy to do. And then you can do both.
Yeah. That's so great. And yeah, just to that point though, just like it says above, as a reminder, the next
Yeah,
24 hours,
you
you
get
can buy the stuff, get 15% off. So
50% off.
yeah.
There's no better stick than mine. Don't buy Dave Weckl stick, guys. Buy mine.
So speaking of Dave Wackel, this is a great
Yeah.
segue. So a few years
Oh,
ago when we
Dave.
were able to travel, I saw you at the fantasy camp, and
Yes.
I think it was in Cleveland at that time.
Yeah.
And
Cleveland.
I walked in on your masterclass just to watch for a little bit, and it was almost like I explain it to people as if I was watching a computer, in the sense that people were shooting out or throwing out like just any kind of time signature they can think of. Like it was like they were putting that in the computer, and you were just spitting. You would just play a groove in that time signature, and everybody was like, they tried to stump you and they couldn't do it. I had
Man,
never seen anything like that before in my life.
yeah, you were mean to me.
Yeah, yeah, but you crushed it, and all that. I'm bringing that all up because like there's another two songs that I had highlighted. I mean, there's a lot of songs on the record where you're doing this, but where you do a lot of odd time playing, and but you do all the independent stuff you're just talking about, but then you do it in odd times too. And I know that like Finish Line is probably one where you're doing like two different time signatures at the same time, I think. Can
Sure.
you break that down a little bit?
Yes, of course. Happy to. Can you go to finish line? Um, Mike's going to finish line in the meantime, and I'll break it down. So finish line um, has a it's inspired by music from Mali. I don't know. I may not seem like the super serious musicologist, but I am. I'm really a big fan of all kinds of ethnic music from all over the world, and I look for inspiration in weird places like Bali or Mali, and not just countries that end with Ali.
There's a
But
theme here.
there's a theme, yeah. Anyways, but this one is inspired by music from Mali, which I love, and go this. So it's a very straight pattern with a 5-stroke roll on the kick drums, and I always in the verse bridge both pedals, and I play both kick drums and both hi-hats at the same time. Of course, it's twice as hard to push them down, but you get that really cool jingly kick drummy sound. And I love that kind of messy kick drum sound. And I'm playing kind of a tribal pattern with the gong drum and the kick drums, all low drums. That's what I imagine it to sound like. Anyways, and an offbeat on the hi-hat here, so it's kind of dancey too. And then in the chorus section, I play the beat upside down. Because I'm weird, and I play the bass drum with the hand, my left hand on the gong drum, snare drum backbeat, a little melodic thing on the viola toms, right pattern over here, and I play the hi-hat patterns with the feet, and the hi-hat patterns are in 3/4. So the feet play 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And I'm using a crasher and the right hi-hat for that. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And the hand on top of that play this. The left hand is leading with the kick drum, and the right hand is playing the snare drum and ride pattern like this. And under that, the feet like this. And there is a pattern in 3/4, which is the foot pattern, and the pattern in 4/4 or on the top, which is also kind of a layered pattern. And I'll play you a little bit of the song. Can you start it, Mike? Then you get a better idea. Here we go. So, yeah, that was that. And there's a really cool part I want this song. You want to still hear? Yeah? Can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, now we can. You paused for a second. You froze up.
Oh, sorry. So there's another one part I want to talk about this song, also because people have been asking about it. There's a breakdown section. It goes, and I'm playing a funky pattern here, and it's alternating singles, 30-second notes between right hand and left foot. So it's basically just 1 E and you know. And then I play. While I'm doing that, I'm playing the kick drum with the right foot. So it's basically like a roll between right and left foot. So. And then I switch and I play the kick drum with the left foot in the next half bar, and roll between right hand and right foot. So the pattern goes like this. I'll show you the foot camera so you see what's happening down here. Somebody just commented on my calves. Okay, thank you. They look very muscular. I know. I don't know how but anyways. So here we go. Right hand, left foot. Then I go left foot on the kick drum and right foot on the right hi-hat. Yeah. So. So anyways, that's a fun pattern to play, followed by another cool pattern that goes like this. Playing all these enough the left hand on hi hat. Three, four. Some syncopations and little do that with the right hand. You look mad at me, Joe. I'm
Yeah,
conscious of that.
just
Sorry. Okay, I'll cut it out. I can
hit
go
that
for
hit
on
that
forever with all these songs.
hit that
Hit
button.
that button. Hit that button. Oh, I did. No, here it is.
Yeah. So I have to ask, did you specifically write these tunes so that no one else in the world could play them?
No,
I
that
got
was
it. Go ahead. Go
no.
ahead.
I wrote them because I wanted something I had heard before. That's my creative ambition to to play things that are different and fun and that put you in a different state of mind. This is such an old instrument I've been playing for such a long time, and usually when we play, it's very simple and primitive. I'm not dissing drumming at all, but it's very traditional. I mean, traditionally the left hand only keeps time, and it really doesn't do anything fancy. And I wanted to turn things upside down, play kick drum patterns with my hands and hi-hat patterns with my feet, and just have a different approach to drumming that puts you in a different state of mind, musically, intellectually, in terms of expression, control, discipline, all that kind of stuff.
No, I,
And
I I love it. I'm just giving you a hard time, but
yeah,
it's amazing, and I'm glad someone is doing this because I think it just opens up creative avenues for a lot of people watching. So,
exactly.
are you actually in speaking about that? Can people get the drumless tracks if they wanted to play along or try to play along? Are you doing that or thinking about it?
Yeah. Yes, we are doing that. And on the Nine Beats app, which will be out in the App Store in the fall, you can download all these songs. You can buy the album now on iTunes and CD Baby. It's up there. I'm not streaming it, but it's on iTunes. And you can order it from my website, and you can get the drumless tracks and different mixes, without drums, then only drums, with click, without click, etc. on the Nine Beats app, Nine Beats USA app in the fall when the app is released.
That's awesome. So, let's talk about Nine Beats a little bit since you brought it up.
Okay.
Because a lot of people I'm sure don't know what it is and what you're involved in. And uh, before we go into, I do want to get into your career a little bit and talk about that because I find that to be fascinating how you got to where you are. But I do want to talk about Nine Beats too, because I think what you're doing there is really cool. And I think a lot of people should be aware of it. So why don't you break that down a little
Of
bit?
course. Well, Nine Beats is originally from China, the largest drum school franchise in the world, founded by Mr. Li Hongyu, who you know and have met many times. He's a drummer, great drummer himself. He started a drum school in Tianjin, and that grew into this massive drum school franchise, which now is the biggest in the world, with 350,000 physical drum students and great apps and amazing infrastructure. And I've been touring in Asia, all over Asia and China a lot, and met Mr. Lee many years ago. They've been incorporating some of my methods, teaching methods, group lesson stuff, boot camp style lessons, and my method books, etc., in their lessons. And I've been doing a lot of teaching there, working on syllabus with them, and so on. And we decided, Mr. Lee and I, to and start 9 beats for the rest of the world because it's a proven, incredibly successful concept with a true method of teaching drums. They have a series of 23 great drum books. And so we started 9 Beats USA here in Oak Park, California, and we are of course, headquarter offices here. We're also multimedia recording studio and teaching facility. We have classrooms here. We have lockouts. We have rehearsal rooms, etc. And we're expanding all over North and South America with several
Yeah.
other locations already on board with us, including Texas, 3 places in Texas, Houston, Frisco, Dallas, New York, Seattle, and so on. So it's exciting, and anybody who's interested, jump on board. Check out 9beatsusa.com and the app in the fall. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, what's it? You started telling me a little bit about that the other day. Can you tell me a little bit about the app?
Yes, it's full of tons and tons of original material we create here at 9
Hmm.
Beats USA. A lot of my personal lessons, my play along tracks. Then there's a lot of content we already have that was produced previously by me or in China by fantastic drummers. We have a lot of licensed content, including content from Drum Guru, Hudson Music. Drum Channel, Thomas Lang's Drum Universe, and so on. And we're continuously producing new content. So, and we have everything from transcriptions, PDF files, all our books, 9 Beats books are in there as PDF files with play along track. The app has a little mixer. You can play with music and fade up the click or down the click. You see the transcriptions. You can see video performances of that particular song. There's live streaming lessons on the app and much more. So I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool. It's really great stuff. And we talked about it. I remember us talking about it at NAM. You were so fired up, and then of course all this COVID stuff hit, put a little
Exactly.
pause on it, but it'll get going again. I'm confident. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so look, let's talk about your start. I mean, you're from Austria. How do you get from Austria all the way to where you are today in LA? Like,
Yeah,
I know that's a long thing, but I think there's a lot of history there that a lot of people don't know about Thomas Lang, and it it's actually really fascinating when you hear the story, and I think people would really enjoy it, even though you're probably bored with it. But I'm gonna
no,
pull it out of you anyways.
I love talking about myself, Joe.
Digging me. Yeah.
Well, what brought me this far? It's my Austrian accent, I think. Yeah, when I talk like this, people are, oh, it sounds so exotic. Yeah, you must be a great musician. Um, but no, I don't know. I always loved music, and I started working very young in Austria. I started playing very young, and then went to the conservatory and had my formal training, kind of very strict authoritarian Austrian music schools and conservatory and all that. And I started working really young. At 18, I was on the road and touring, and got very lucky with my early gigs, which I mean, literally in high school, I happened to play with bands that had number one hits and played big shows nationally and internationally in Austria. So it was just I was lucky to be connected with great working musicians when I was very young and still studying, and
Oh,
kind of.
your first one, was it Falco?
It wasn't my very first one, but one of the
Mm.
first ones. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Before I played with them, I already played with other like Austro pop kind of stars
yeah.
and Italian pop stars, and I already had kind of a presence in the music scene in Vienna. And because of that, I met musicians who played with Falco, and then just ended up playing with him and his band, and also co-writing with him and co-producing. It was a long working relationship, but it happened through sort of connection within the scene I was already working in Vienna. And then
What years are those?
uh 80s, mid
Yeah,
80s,
yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
84, 3, 4, 5, early 80s actually, yeah, early to, and then on from there. I mean, like I said, I started working very early with successful bands. Just luck. No, not my talent, guys. It definitely wasn't talent. I was just, hey,
No,
I'm
but the
good.
Falco gig had to help get you like international. I mean, that was huge when Amadeus came. I think it was huge worldwide. I remember that in the '80s, like the MTV, the whole thing. It was humongous.
It was Amadeus was a huge worldwide hit, and then there was before that there were other hits, just German language hits like the Kommissar
Hmm.
or many others, and then Amadeus was a huge international hit. In the charts, number one here in the US for a long time, and also then, of course, after that, he had a lot more hits too, and we kept touring and working, and also on the side, I was doing a lot of other stuff too, not just working, because he wasn't working all the time, and
Yeah.
touring all the. So I had a ton of other session work and a lot of touring. I moved to London at the time too, and lived in London for 15 years. Did a lot of kind of pop gigs in London, a lot of studio sessions. Started working with really kind of bubblegum pop bands, and
Yeah, you
also.
didn't you do Spice Girls and
Yes, exactly, and Jerry and a lot of their also their solo projects after the bands split up, and and um, a lot of like boy bands like 911 and with Robbie Williams and Stephen Gately,
Mm.
Westlife, back what are we called? They were called Boyzone, and you know a lot of manufactured kind of poppy acts and bands, Bewitched, and what was big, what was big at the time, Sugar Babes, and so on.
So let
But
me ask you, when you're doing all the pop gigs, which are typically 2 and 4, right, for most of the gig, nothing like what you just played for us.
actually,
Did
I yes, pop music is very simple, which I can totally appreciate. I love simplicity and minimalism in music and art in general, design, etc. But a lot of those patterns inspired me to practice, or in not just practice, but include more sort of more grooves that are truly designed and composed and involve a lot of independence. Like there were a lot of beats that included a shaker of a drum beat, and then you would have a program part, a sequence to play to with a click track live. But oftentimes, I just wanted to play those parts too, because it's more fun, it's more challenged, gives me something to focus on and think about when I'm playing very simple music. So I started doing a lot of things like this kind of stuff with my left foot, playing right patterns, with my left foot, because there may be a program pattern goes ding, and so because my right hand was playing ding, 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 or whatever it is, so I just played that pattern with my left foot. So I did kind of include a lot of those concepts into very very simple kind of poppy stuff, including left foot lead patterns either on a crash or a hi-hat or whatever sound I had at my disposal, and also splitting up foot patterns between kick drum and multiple hi-hats, like things like that. Not throughout the whole song, but there were sections in a lot of those songs that had those kind of elements in it, and I always found that interesting. And that's what kind of made it fun for me to play simple music, because if you look at it under the microscope, it's not really that simple. It also involved a lot of electronics and switching sounds, so it was a very intellectual sort of time, even though it may sound simple because it's pop music, but it truly wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was what my question was going to be. Was when you were doing that, were you also on the side developing all that independent scoring? But it sounds like you were already incorporating it into the music back then, way back then.
Yes, I was. I practiced all that stuff before, and prior to that era. But I was applying it then. I was trying to work it in because it seemed to make sense and made playing a lot of those patterns possible. So I did, and it kept it interesting, and fun for me.
So let me ask you, when you approach a gig, or at least maybe it's probably evolved since you like were a kid when you first started to what you do now. But like when you first get on a gig, how do you approach the new gig? Like, do you like if you haven't met the guys yet, you're going into the rehearsal studio the first time. Like, what are the things you do to prepare for the gig, and then approach the guys when you're first meeting them in the room?
You know, uh, of course, I approach every gig in one aspect exactly the same way. I prepare for it. I learn the music. I do some research into previous albums or tours or whatever. I learn the songs and set list, and familiarize myself with the material and prepare so I know the songs without having to use charts or something. And sometimes I still do at rehearsals, but it's because it's more complex. But I try not to. And in that sense, every gig's the same. I prepare for it by learning the music, and preparation is everything, as you know. And then certain gigs are different because they're more traditional kind of rock, kind of jam gigs. You play stuff without sequencing, all live, no electronics, just rock band style. And that's super fun and easy to do. And very different approach. The playing is literally like it's all, it's hard hitting, big, fun, live kind of stuff. It's all about emotion, expression, energy, very traditional sort of stuff. Interaction between band members, some improvisation and so on. And then there's the other gigs that are a lot more complex in terms of technology. Require programming, sequencing, electronic sounds, and a whole other level of preparation for the production. It's not just a gig; it's a production. And you pre-produce sounds, you upload your sounds, you work on triggers and sensitivities and on how to play certain patterns, because you listen to the record and it's like there's 3 drum parts going on at the same time. So how can I make this happen? And it takes a lot more preparation and creativity too, because you have to find solutions for a lot of musical and technological problems. And that again, a very different type of preparation, but just as fun for me. I love being involved in production, and I write and produce a lot, so that sort of aspect of it is fun for me too.
Yeah, you play other instruments too, which I don't think a lot of people know. And do you find that the knowledge of those instruments? I mean, I kind of know the answer to this question, but I want to hear your perspective on it. Do you
Yeah.
find it? Do you find do you find understanding other instruments and how to play them helps you better as a drummer?
Yes, it does.
How did I know this is going to happen?
What do you think, Joe? What do you think?
Okay.
Help you play piano?
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Like, no, of course it does. I started playing piano at the same time I started playing drums, very young, and I played the flute before that even. Yes, I don't play the flute anymore, but I still play piano, and I use it a lot to write and produce. And I play a little bass and guitar and whatever I need. Really, I can play enough to write a song and record certain parts on it. I'm not a shredder on the guitar, definitely not. I'm a better, and I play bass, and I've played bass live and on tours and stuff before, but I'm good enough on several other instruments that I can record myself and, of course, write songs and produce music.
Yeah.
And I'm also
Yeah,
terrible,
that's
by the way, as you just heard
you're
in some
No, but I think being well-rounded like that is especially in today's environment, it's really, really good for you.
Yes, I think it's really important to be able to wear many hats, to be able to understand music overall, uh, from different perspectives, not just from a drumming perspective. I think it's important to be able to write and produce music, to be able to read, to be able to engineer, and understand the workings of a recording studio, of a live production. Everything that has to do with what we do as drummers, I think, is important and worth investigating.
Yeah.
So,
And
what can you
I also go ahead. Go ahead.
no, just I'm pointing at the viewers and say, wear many hats, everybody. Learn as much as you
Yeah.
can about music.
Yeah, and another thing that I think that I don't know if everybody knows or not, but you had a bout with carpal tunnel,
Yes.
and you obviously have recovered fine. And I know that this is an issue in our industry for a lot of people, and I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about it, because I think it'd be good for some people to hear your journey going through that and what how you got there, what happened, and then maybe even go over some warm-ups of what you do now to stay,
Okay.
healthy.
Yes. You see, carpal tunnel is one of those things. It's clearly, in my case, also brought on by playing drums loud for several decades. Carpal tunnel is usually brought on and starts as a result of vibration and grip. So bikers, for example, or truck drivers, people who work like heavy construction equipment, anybody who grips something hard all day long, and it vibrates like a drumstick. That can cause
Hmm.
carpal tunnel syndrome. And of course, about 50% of it is also a genetic predisposition to carpal tunnel. It's not only caused by activity, also genetic. And in my case, it started already quite a while ago with my little finger going numb. First of all, like towards the end of a set, I could feel it tingling and felt weird, no sensation. And then it got worse, the ring finger and the little finger. And then it's kind of crept up into my hand up to a point where as soon as I started playing, all my fingers got numb. And then it started creeping up my arm, way up to my elbow, my complete forearm, everything was totally numb. I mean, I felt nothing up to a point where I would cut myself cooking or burn myself all the time or hit myself and I was bleeding and not feeling any pain. And of course, that's very dangerous. And if you leave it untreated, you can cause permanent nerve damage. So, and it becomes very painful. When you sit like cross-legged like I do right now for a while and then get up and one of your legs fell asleep,
Yeah.
that weird kind of, needles and pins. It's like an electric shock. Just like that all the time, and it's very painful because it doesn't go away. So
Hmm.
I had issues, and I was always booked and traveling, and that made it worse because I kept playing. And when you're not feeling the stick in your hand, as great as the Thomas Lang signature stick, by the way, feels, if you're not feeling it, you're unhappy. Okay, you got to go get the stick and feel it. It feels really good, but I wasn't feeling it because of the carpal tunnel syndrome. So I gripped the stick much tighter, because I had to make sure I'm still holding it. The only way I could tell I'm holding the stick was by looking at my hand and hearing the sound when I banged it on something. It was bad, and I was played with a very stiff wrist and completely with a super tight squeeze on the stick, which caused trigger finger, which I had to get fixed, and all kinds of other scope creep type problems. And I found this great surgeon here in LA, and he man, you really need to get. I said, but I'm going on tour again in 2 weeks. Can you give me an injection and do some magic so I can play for 4 weeks? And he did that for a while, but literally at the first meeting, he said, you need surgery. Whatever I do to temporarily treat you will work, but you'll be back here and you'll need surgery. And so after a few years of injections and all kinds of hot tile wraps and laser therapy and electro acupuncture, I took some time off and got surgery, and it was done within 45 minutes of surgery. It was done, and I had
You had to be scared out of your mind.
I was worried, of course, because playing music is my passion and my life and my livelihood and everything else. Of course, it was scary, especially because I had both hands. I had problems with.
I remember seeing. I didn't even know you were having it done, and you showed me the scars, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" And you told me the whole thing, and you were like already on your way playing again, which I could not believe, and that's.
No, and I was very lucky to get the right advice from a really competent surgeon. And if you have any issues, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you go see a doctor if you have any kind of tingling issues or any pain, whatever it is. And I always thought I had very good technique, and I was told I had great technique, but it still happened. So it doesn't always depend just on your technique or anything. It's not only solely playing related, also genetically caused. So I was lucky to get it done. He did an amazing job, and it was amazing because when you have no sensation in your hands, I couldn't feel the keys on a piano when I was playing or writing, or I'm typing on a keyboard. I felt nothing. You got stubble on your face, you can't feel it. You run fingers through your hair, you can't feel anything. Paper, whatever, any smaller items you don't feel. So when after surgery, I was texting. And for the first time in like years, I felt sensation on my fingertips. It was crazy. So it's like a weird person high on something, touching her. Stubble. Hair.
Well, actually, so when you come out of it, so warming up and properly warming up. Give us some hints, some tips on that.
I will like this. that usually does it for me. Seriously.
So, how many times can you have the operation?
That's a good question. No, I mean, if you're talking about more limit type one, honestly, I don't do. I can show everybody some rudimental patterns and things that I think are great to get the juices flowing. But I also have to admit, and maybe that's why I had to get surgery twice. Uh, so don't take my advice. I really honestly don't warm up much, and I never did. Every once in a while, I'll be in the dressing room noodling, playing double strokes or whatever, but really not much. I like the anticipation of, uh, before a show, the excitement, the fact that you're not playing and that your drum's on stage and that's where you're going to go to play. I like that. It makes it more exciting and fun for me. And when I'm already playing in the dressing room, it kind of takes away that anticipation and good positive nervous energy. But in terms of playing the first couple of songs, and really it's only about that. For me personally, once I'm on stage playing, after one song, I'm warmed up. And usually the first song isn't like the most challenging or doesn't require the most finesse or anything. Usually, it's something like whatever, something like that. And that doesn't really require much, finesse with the fingers. It's all forearms and shoulders. But what I like to do is when I have to play more intricate stuff, I like to warm up with just rudimental stuff, singles and doubles, and mixed stickings. Things like paradiddle diddles, double paradiddles, exercises, like for example, 6-stroke rolls or paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, things like that. On the snare, it would be right, left, right, right, left, left. And do that on a pad for a while. Or I also do that with my feet, by the way, because that's also a really good warm-up if you just go that. So it's right, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left. I find that is a great warm up for both hands and feet. Also for the feet, a good warm up. And I like doing things like simple double strokes with the hands. Just double stroke rolls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And I like to do it in time, like at 130 or something. Both traditional and match grip. I like to do it both ways. And the same thing with the feet. Also, warm-ups for the feet for me are good singles and doubles, and combinations of singles and doubles. Just single stroke accents, like 16-note triplets with accents, like this. It goes. Or same thing with the hands. I'll play it in unison, like this. So. I'll play it on cymbals and feet. I find that playing dynamic patterns really helps with warming up because you work different muscle groups at the same time. And double strokes, the feet alone would look like this. Double strokes, and I use an ankle stroke and the stomp for this. So right, right, left, left, right, left, 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 right. And I like to work accents into the doubles. And play very much sort of rudimental phrases like 6-stroke rolls, 10-stroke rolls, 12-stroke rolls. For example, here's a 10-stroke roll. With the feet too. So it's all rudimental stuff, and you'll, if you have any kind of, stick control book or master studies or anything like that, it's all in there. All very basic rudimental things. And yeah, that usually helps get the juices flowing for me.
Yeah, that's great, and it's obvious that you do everything with your hands. You do with your feet, which
Yeah.
again is so. I had the question for you
I
because I
also
know what
brush
you're
my
doing
with my feet.
is complicated
I get
for
dressed with
the.
my feet. Make coffee with my feet.
um,
Make you a cup of coffee
I need a cough. I need a cup of coffee right now.
with my feet.
So seriously, how do you get the mental focus and the discipline? Like, how do you develop that? Like, practicing has always been something that I find um, guys of your capability and talent have somehow mastered that very early on in your life. And I don't know if it was because it was taught to you or you were taught properly from a teacher originally, or you just figured it out. But there's so much new science now around the neuroscience of how people learn and it I just seem to think guys like you have got that way long ago, and I'm just curious how you got there, because if we can help people get there quicker, I
Absolutely.
think it would be great, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, I don't believe in talent at all. And many books have been written on that subject and about how talent is overrated and about outliers and what really is that we consider talent. Well, whatever that is, I don't think I have it. Okay, I have all those sort of elements that maybe add up to what people refer to as talent, but I don't see talent as something magical that comes out of nowhere and is something god-given that some people have and others don't. No, I don't believe that at all. I think it has a lot to do with passion, interest, discipline, with support, um, and the being at the right place at the right time, all those kind of things. And in my case, yes, I was extremely lucky to have support from my parents, have the infrastructure to be able to practice at home in my parents' basement, have access to a great teacher. And I happened to have a great teacher who just taught me the right things at the right time, which is practicing how to practice. Most musicians never learn to practice or were never taught how to practice by someone. They just stumble upon a method that works for them after an era. And I happen to have a teacher who taught me the meaning of practice and what practicing entails and what it should look like, when you're doing it correctly, and what incorrect practice is. So I knew the difference, and that made a huge difference in my playing career to this day. And understanding the difference between playing and practicing, understanding the importance of focus and concentration, the importance of keeping a practice log, the importance of having goals, short term and long term goals, how to divide your practice time efficiently, how to time manage, how to be productive, how to find the right time of day for practicing. All these kind of things play into tweaking your practice routine to the absolute max. There's many factors that play into this, and I was taught very early to pay attention to all those factors to optimize the results of my practice.
So do you find that it's is it as much about the amount of time you put in, or is it how you spend your time? Like if you only have an hour a day versus 8 hours, can you get the same amount done in an hour as you could in 8 hours if you do it right?
Of course not. You can always get more done in 8 hours, and doing it right is a given. You shouldn't do it wrong in the first place, no matter how much time you have. You should be practicing with focus, with a plan, discipline. Your practice should be methodical, repetitive, and it should have a purpose and a goal. And no matter how much, of course, time is an important factor. The more time you have for quality practice, the better, the more that you get done. But even if you only have an hour, you can get a lot of quality practice done and make great progress if you prioritize and if you have a methodical approach to practicing. A lot of people, a lot of musicians don't prioritize at all when they're practicing what's important right now, and they don't have a goal, so they don't identify their weaknesses and work on those. They work on whatever comes easy, usually not what's hard. And the most important thing is, if you're practicing anything, especially a musical instrument, is you have to have a goal in mind. Like, what kind of drummer do you want to be? What do you want to sound like in 10 years? Do you want to be a jazz drummer, or do you want to be a metal drummer? Very different approaches to practicing, and very different material to practice. So you have to decide early on, what is it you want? You want to be good at everything? Then you need a lot more time. If you only have an hour a day and your goal is to become a jazz drummer, prioritize what's important. Look at your weaknesses. You can't play swing, you can't play brushes, and you don't know any standards and real book material. Well, there's three big weaknesses, and you
Yeah.
make a list of your weaknesses, and then you start working towards that hour a day. If priority number one is to learn how to swing, that's what you do for an hour a day.
Yeah. And how do you, and this may not even be answerable, like how do you stay focused on a task as opposed to just starting to drift off into another, you know,
Yeah.
almost ADD in a way. You know what I mean? Like you start working on something and then you get bored because it's a repetitive thing that you're trying to build those paths in your brain. And after a while it gets boring and you just want to start going off, How do you not like give into that temptation?
Practice rule number one: never play when you practice, never practice when you play. And
Mm.
that rule is exactly that. You have to stay with it. Practicing and playing are such different mindsets and approaches. Practicing is methodical, repetitive, boring, and focused on yourself. And it's frustrating because you're practicing only things you cannot do. So you're at a constant point of failure the whole time. When you're playing, it's extroverted, not introverted. You don't focus on yourself. You focus on the band, the music, the audience. It's interactive. It's more experimental. It's emotional, and it's not repetitive necessarily. It could be improvisational, experimental. Completely different states of mind. You
Mm.
know. So introverted when you're practicing, repetitive, boring, frustrating. Playing, outroverted, fun, experimental, emotional. So when you're practicing and you're switching these states all the time, you're neither doing one or the other correctly, and you're not learning anything. You're cutting into your productive practice time by playing. And when you're practicing something, quote unquote, that you've already practiced. You're not really practicing, you're playing at that point during your practice time.
Yeah.
So both sides are very inefficient. And rule number one, like I said, is never play when you practice. Means stay in that mindset of being repetitive, introverted, at the point of failure, and push yourself as much as you can. So never play when you practice, and then never practice when you play means, of course, that once you're performing out with the band you're playing, don't attempt to play things you haven't practiced unless you're already at a high level of playing. You can improvise and experiment and so on. Because if you don't, if then you're going to make yourself look like a fool and the rest of the band too. So that's really important to differentiate. And I learned to focus on practice with my first teacher. He made me practice in front of him and said, why do you stop now? Don't interrupt the exercise. No, don't play that fill there. That's what it says in those two bars. Don't play anything else. You're doing this for 20 minutes now. Okay, but it got boring after 10, so I started doing that and this, and here's a crash cymbal. It's like, no, absolutely not. You're losing it. You totally lost focus. Start over. Do another 15 minutes of that. So always
Uh,
learn to sort of censor yourself, you know. And I'll give you a typical example of what it sounds like when Mike, okay, here at 9 Beats, when he's practicing, and we're all guilty of this. I'll show you what it sounds like. Okay, somebody practicing, let's say, a samba beat or whatever. So they're doing this, cascada, clave with the left foot. That's what they want to practice. So what you hear outside the rehearsal room is this.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, uh, uh. You get the idea, right? You get it, right?
Yeah, I'm laughing because that was totally me. That's my whole life. So
That's all.
that's the problem.
Avoid that. Okay, here's the thing. To put it into perspective, okay, a good practicer, with discipline, um, noodles maybe 30% of the time. So 70% is true practicing. 30% is stroking ego and telling yourself you're not really that terrible by playing things you've already practiced. And then most musicians are terrible practicers with bad discipline. So about 50% of the practice time is spent and playing, not practicing. So put that into perspective. You can have the choice to get to your goal where you want to be, to eliminate that weakness in your playing in 5 years or in 10 years. Because 50%, spent on noodling and not really improving your playing. Even though you're playing, you're not tweaking or adjusting or improving anything. And that's a big difference. 50% spent more efficiently or not takes you to your goal much quicker or not.
Yeah, that's really great. That's great. Okay, so we're getting close. Unbelievably, we're almost at an hour and a half. So I do want to. I mean, there's so much stuff here, but maybe we take some questions from the audience
Yeah,
before we close out with some music.
guys and girls, send in some infos and questions. Oh, there you are, Raul. Raul
Ah, Brazilian drummers.
No, Thomas. Brazilian drummers. What I think about Brazilian drummers, I love all drummers, not just Brazilian drummers. My good friend Achilles Priester was here. Kiko Freitas, fantastic. You know who I also love?
Kiko's a bad dude, man.
Kiko, man, he's amazing. Um, uh, there's so many great players. Hang on, I have to unlock the computer here real quick. But I love Brazilian drummers. You know what I love about Brazil is, I mean, the music in general, Brazilian music, because it's so drum heavy and they play drums with attitude, and drums are all over everything all the time. And love samba. I love drums played loud. Where I'm from, drums were considered quite barbaric and primitive, and that's in something for cavemen and monkeys like me, but I love that about Brazil. You know.
That's great.
Next question. Drums good. Love drummers.
If you, I got another question here that came in earlier. Throughout the span of musical history, if you could play with any musician, who would it be and why?
Wow.
It's a tough one.
I mean, there's many that I really admired, like Frank Zappa, for example, of course, or David Bowie, and many great musicians and artists that I thought were really amazing. But those are such cliche answers. Prince, of course, Frank Zappa, David Bowie, the list goes on. I'm
Yeah,
trying to find
yeah,
something a little more obscure. And uh, honestly, Miles, of course, Miles Davis, amazing.
oh yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. Well, those are
All
my
right.
answers. Kevin,
Uh,
Kevin Deegan Hall. Hey, Kevin, if you have anyone you see as my biggest influence, who would that be? My biggest influence. Uh, my biggest influence is probably Stuart Copeland. I don't sound
oh
like him
wow.
at all these days, but he was really inspiring to me because he had personality. He had so much personality in his playing, and that's always what I admired about any musician: personality and style and uniqueness. And Stewart had. I always loved drummers who sounded different and played differently and got their inspirations, from different places. For example, Stewart had this cranked snare drum. He played all the beats upside down. He played kind of reggae beats and punk music and vice versa. And he had octobans, really high pitched melodic drums. He had splash cymbals. He played fills in weird places. He had a bizarre technique with the, traditional grip, with the index finger on top of the stick instead of the
Yeah,
ring finger and index finger. And he played with such aggression and energy. It was super inspiring to me. And the way he approached playing, he had an Arabic sort of music background growing up in Beirut, and brought those kind of darbuka type vibes with the octopans into and the splashy cymbals. It was kind of Arabic music mixed with new wave and punk, and it was like, wow, to me that was amazing and super inspiring, and still is. And drummers like Neil Peart, who had sort of the orchestral setup with very distinctively pitched concert toms and chimes and all kinds of melodic elements in his drum set, playing very orchestral sort of pre-composed parts. And then drummers like Steve Gadd, who brought the rudimental thing into drumming, and he's the first one who started playing real like 5-stroke and 4-stroke rolls. Those kind of, or 6-stroke rolls. All that kind of typical stuff, and breaking up patterns. Those kind of 6-stroke rolls. I loved all that stuff. So those were the drummers who were most inspiring to me. People and players with total personality that are different. And here's the next question. James Burgess. Give us a quick independence exercise incorporating different subdivisions. Okay. Different subdivisions. Here's an independent exercise with different subdivisions for you. Play, quintuplets with your feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the footsie. 2, 3, 4. These are quintuplets. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. On top of that, play quarter notes, alternating right, left, then eighth notes, alternating right, left, eighth note triplets, and so on. Okay, here we go. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, quarter notes. Eighth notes. Triplets. Eighth note triplets. 16 notes. Quintuple. Now we're in unison. 6-tuplet. 10-tuplets. 30-second. 10-tuplets. 6-tuplets. Quintuplets. 60 notes. Triplets. Notes. quarter note. Okay, Mr. Burgess, take it away. Your turn. Aaron, I know Aaron. Aaron Kennedy.
Good dude.
We know each Thomas. We know each took lessons from you in Birmingham, UK, and we are bought. Okay, Aaron, you got to
We're
work on.
both.
You,
what's your proudest
Oh.
moment?
you're not good, man. You're not very learned, man. No, seriously, what's good? What? I didn't see that.
What's one of your proudest moments? He said.
Proudest moments. Well,
Let's go with musical proudest moments. That way you don't have to feel guilty.
I'm not sharing any private proud moments.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, being on the cover of a drama magazine, for example, when that happened the first time, I was very proud because that was always my monodrama. Wow, that's such an amazing magazine. All my idols were in it and on it. So when I ended up, and I don't know how, but it happened. The first time, I don't know, maybe more than 20 years ago, maybe. I think it's been the third time now. I was super proud, and I still am. And then I'm on the issue of Modern Drummer right now this month. So get your copy. I'm sharing all my secrets, also the private ones. All the proud moments are in there.
Awesome. All right, last question here. What do we got?
Yingesh Patel, okay. Have you ever played with Indian musicians? If yes, how was your experience? Yes, I have. And I loved the experience. With Trilok Gurta, I played, for example. Of course, I also played with several. Murthy, what's his name? Karuna Murthy, amazing Tavil player. I love Indian music. I work a lot of Indian music concepts into my playing without sort of identifying them as Indian, but I use a lot of reductions and extensions in my fills. I've taken a lot of Indian rhythmic concepts into my playing, and I love Nabla. I love South Indian music. All Indian music is amazing. Rhythmically, super complex, very interesting. I love the sounds. And I love the instruments. So yes, it was always a great experience. Love it. And here's an example. I do often when I play fills, I use reductions or extensions like this. I'll play, alternating singles, groups of ones, then doubles, then groups of 3, 4, etc. Like this. So I would play, for example, singles between hands and feet, then doubles, 3, put something like that, an extension in a 1-bar fill or a 2-bar fill. So I played 1, 2, 3, 4. Very conceptual. Or I do this with longer groups. So 2 times 9, 1 times 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2 times and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. So I use a lot of those kind of concepts and then I beef it up and throw in some double kick. So that kind of stuff. It's all inspired by Indian music.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Thomas, man, thank you very much for doing this, bro.
Thank you, Joe.
I know it's a lot of time out of your day, but I think everybody enjoys it, appreciates it. And I just want to remind everybody out there, if you are interested in getting any Vic Firth signature sticks, but especially Thomas Lang's, you can get them at vicfirth.com. Right now, you get 15% off if you order them today. Within the next 24 hours, you just got to use the code VF Signature.
There they are.
Perfectly. Yeah, they
are. And go get them. And don't buy Dave Weckl stick, okay? They get all the brown stuff on your drums. You've seen it before. You know what I'm talking about.
But thank you again, Thomas. I really appreciate you, man. We're gonna close out with another track from the new record, And I hope everybody enjoys it and enjoyed this. And hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Take care, buddy.
No, take care.
All righty.